Anybody have any stress out there whatsoever? I just want to make sure we have the right group. Okay. One of the things I want to make sure we do this morning is try to make this as much about real life as possible, because I don't want this to be about psychobabble or theory or research. I want it to be about real life. Ways that you can become more influential in dealing with these stressors in your life. So what I want you to be doing is thinking of what you would define as a stressor, since you know more about your real life than I do. And what we're going to do is make a list of these things so I can make sure that I'm applying my material to your real-life situations. Before I do that, I have had the pleasure of doing 2 PBS specials and writing 4 books. The first PBS special was called All Stressed Up and Nowhere to Go. That's what I did for you guys about, I think someone said it was in 2003. It was in Chicago. Wonderful time, great group of people. The second PBS special, second book, was called From Chaos to Calm, Dealing with Difficult People versus Them Dealing with You. I don't know if you ever deal with any difficult people whatsoever in your life, just in case. I've taken all the material from those 2 books and those 2 PBS specials and put them in my 4th book called Life from the Top of the Mind. And I'll explain a little bit about that as we go through, because it's going to apply to what we're talking about. And by the way, the reason I'm talking about these books, because toward the end of our time this morning, we're going to do a drawing, and somebody's going to get to win a copy of one of these books. Ooh, free stuff, yay! And if you want me to make it an autographed copy, that's a big ego stroke for me. All you got to do is ask, and I'll be happy to get it. Yeah, sure, not a problem. Now, you can win that, or you could win this book that really doesn't have anything to do with what we're talking about today. It's called How to Get Kids to Do What You Want. Yeah, people say that must be a work of fiction, right? Because there's no way to do it. Now, these are my kids on the front, Christopher and Nicholas, and this is about how to interact with your kids in such a way that they not only pay more attention to you, but also allow you to teach them the qualities and characteristics you want them to have when they become an adult. So you could win that, or you could win this CD that really has nothing to do with anything we're going to be talking about today. It's called How to Eat Anything You Want, Anytime You Want, and Never Gain Weight. Yeah, some people say, I don't care about this other stuff. Let's talk about this, right? It says, with psychologist and Haagen-Dazs aficionado, Dr. Bill Crawford, because I love Haagen-Dazs coffee ice cream. Oh, I mean, the highest fat and caloric count on the planet, right? I mean, just terrible. Especially when you mix it with Pepperidge Farm macadamia nut chocolate chip cookies. Oh, man. That is so good. I love that so much, I have it almost every day. And I had to find a way of having that every day and still maintaining about like 160 on a 6-foot frame. And I've done this for about 15 years using this particular method. So if you're interested in that, you could win that. You just let me know what you want to win toward the end of our time this morning. All right. Any questions for me or about me before we jump into the material? Okay, let's do this. I want you to be thinking about what you would define as a stressor. And by the way, I would like to believe that what we're going to be talking about this morning can be applied to any aspect of life. Because we know there are times sometimes when our personal life spills over into our professional life, and sometimes there are times when our professional life spills over into our personal life. So it's my belief that if we had a model for dealing with this everywhere in our life, we would be more effective, more influential in our experience. So when you think of these stressors, don't think you have to limit them to just your professional experience. They can be personal as well. Now, there's something I probably need to say. This is somewhat embarrassing. I'll get this out of the way quickly. Neither writing nor spelling was required for my degree. So I try not to write anything. I mean, you can hardly read this. And frankly, even if you can't read it, don't worry about it. It's really mostly for me. But if I wrote it up here, I wouldn't be able to read it. So I need some help. I need someone who's sitting in their chair going, I don't want to just sit in this little chair. I want to go up there with Bill and help him write on the flip chart. Ooh, pick me, pick me. Thank you so much. Let's give this person a hand. Yay! And we talked this morning. What was your name again? Nicole. Thank you, Nicole. If you will do this twice for me, Nicole, I will give you a CD of a keynote I did to a group just like this. Okay, thank you, Nicole. Yay, free stuff. It's good. Okay, Nicole, if you'll take this one, and I must limit you in your colors. I apologize for that. I know it's terrible. It's kind of a stressor. Limiting people who limit you, right? Yeah. Just write down whatever they say, and then and feel free to add any of your own, Nicole. Stressors, things that bug you. It could be whiny children. Yes, kids, whiny children, or sometimes just Any kind of children can be both blessings and curses. Good. What else? Money. Now, I assume you mean lack of money, right? Yes. Because if anybody here has too much money and that's a problem, we could fix that right away. I mean, lack of money. Good. What else? Lack of time. Way more to do than we seem to have time to do. Exactly. What else? Whiny staff. That's good. And of course, the staff would say bossy bosses, right? I mean, yeah. So whiny staff, and you might put slash bosses. Oh, no. None of you, of course, but yeah. What? The phone. And the email. And then what? And the pager. All these things that keep interrupting us doing what we're doing. Yeah. Email, pager, interruptions. Good. What else? Yes. Parents. Yes. Yes, I notice pediatric does speak to the... Often when I'm doing my workshop for nurses who work with kids, the workshop is really about dealing with difficult parents. Yes, because that's it. Yes, ma'am. Family dysfunctions. I mean, you know, it's one thing to have to deal with all this stuff at work, and then you come home and you're in the middle of that kind of stuff. Okay, I tell you what, we could probably... Yes. Unrealistic expectations. I love that, and I would never be able to spell it, so I'm so glad that Nicole is up here. And I tell you what, we've run out of room, so let's just do this. Let's let this list represent any stressor in your life. If your particular stressor isn't up here, just imagine that it is, and this will work. Okay, Nicole, you're doing so well. Don't stop. If you'll draw another box over there and put reactions at the top of that box, because I think it's fair to say, when we're dealing with these stressors, we have certain predictable reactions, right? In other words, when we're dealing with whiny kids and lack of money, lack of time, the whiny staff, the bosses, the phone, the email, the pagers, the parents, the family dysfunctions, the unrealistic expectations, we feel stressed, if you would, Nicole. Yes, stressed. Yes, stressed. Well, matter of fact, I'm glad you came up with that first, because what I'd like to do is have every other feeling we have, another reaction kind of be under the umbrella of stress. That way we can certainly talk about how to deal with it. So we feel stressed and... Angry and overwhelmed, I heard over there, too. Two excellent ones. Anxious is a good one. Someone said tired, exhausted. Not just tired, but exhausted. Have you noticed how exhausting it can be dealing with this? Yes, good. What else? I'm sorry? Sad. Yeah, depressed, right? I mean, wouldn't it be great if all of these stressors came with their own supply of antidepressants? The kid said, here, take your mom, here's your Prozac. Trust me, you're going to need it. Take it now. Good. How else do we find ourselves reacting? Get tense. That's a good one. Tense. Thank you. Absolutely. Get tense. Muscle tension. Worried. That's a big one. Yep. And, I'm sorry, headache. Yep. Have you noticed? Often. Yep, that happens. Have you noticed sometimes we get a little short with people sometimes? Like, they catty. That's good. They walk away and they've got claw marks down the side of their face, And I tell you, we've run out of room. Why don't you just write crazy down there, Nicole? And we'll do this. We'll let this list represent any way you find yourself reacting to these stressors in your life. And if your reaction isn't up there, just imagine it is. Let's give Nicole a hand. She did a great job. Here, I've got it. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, because you did wonderfully. Matter of fact, I'm going to recommend you to all my friends. You are so good. Because otherwise, we would just be staring at each other for the next hour. So thank you, Nicole. You did wonderful. Okay. Here's what I want to do. Kind of allow this list, as I mentioned, to represent any stressor in your life. So again, if you can't read it, you don't have to. Just imagine your stressors are listed. And let's let this list represent any way we find ourselves reacting to these stressors in our life. So basically, when we're dealing with whiny kids and lack of money and lack of time and whiny staff and bosses and phone and emails and pagers and parents and dysfunctional families, unrealistic expectations, all the things we didn't have a chance to put up here, we feel stressed and angry. We feel overwhelmed. We get tired, exhausted, more angry. There's two angries there. We must get really angry. That's good. Sad, depressed, tense, worried. We pain, headaches, and we get kind of struck out, and we go crazy. Okay, I think we've done a pretty good job of capturing real life here. We could deal with that in the next 45 minutes. I think our time would be well spent, don't you? All right. The thing I think we need to understand about these two lists is that there is a relationship between them, a chronological relationship. In other words, this happens first, and it triggers this response. Which would be bad enough if it stopped there, but have you noticed that it doesn't? Because when this situation triggers this response, have you noticed the situation seems to get worse? Traffic, deadlines, lack of money, lack of time, which of course triggers another reaction. which, of course, makes it seem worse, which triggers another reaction. And we make it worse and reaction and worse, reaction and worse, reaction and worse, reaction and worse, reaction. Until something explodes. I call this the cycle of stress, frustration. Does this look familiar to anyone here in the room? Isn't this kind of what's going on? There are certain things happening in our life that are triggering a certain reaction. Now, I want to be very clear. I am not here to say you have no right to feel this way. I'm not here to say you're wrong for feeling this way. I just want you to ask yourself one question. How's it working for you? Because I think most people say, man, I don't want to go around feeling stressed and angry and overwhelmed and frustrated. And oh, by the way, could we also put resentful over here? Because we kind of resent having to deal with this stuff, don't we? There's a great quote on resentment you might like that says, resentment is like taking poison and waiting for the other person to die. I love that quote because I think it really captures kind of how we're feeling with understanding, overwhelmed, stress, frustrated, resentment. It's understandable. Unfortunately, it's not working for us. It's actually trapping us in one of these cycles. So what I want to do today, and it'll be a little bit of a challenge with the limited time we have, but I want to do it anyway, is bring you some new information about this. Something you can't read in the local newspaper or the magazine aisle as you're checking out to the grocery store or even in Barnes & Noble. Something that allows you, again, to be more influential and break this cycle. Matter of fact, there's a quote I love from Albert Einstein that says, problems cannot be solved at the same level of awareness that created them. I like that because I think it may speak to why we might find ourselves caught in one of these cycles. We may be trying to solve the problem at the same level of awareness that created it. In other words, if we see stress as the problem, and if we see the stressor as the cause of the problem, then whenever we feel stressed, we come over here and try to change the cause. Ever try to change kids or parents or family people? Have you noticed they don't say thank you for sharing when you try to change them? Now, I'm not saying we can't be influential over here. I want to show you how to be more influential over here. I just think this whole process of defining it as if stress is the problem is actually part of the problem. Matter of fact, I like to come at stress from a very different perspective. I like to see it not so much as the problem, but actually see stress as the solution. What? That's weird. What does he mean by that? Well, there's another quote I really love, mostly because I said it. Oh, before we go there is something I do properly should say. This is something I think that's also going on here, a cycle, and I call it the natural law of cycles. Basically says all of life presents itself as a cycle of cause and effect. Makes sense. The only problem is, again, if we make this the cause, then we become the effect. So here's this quote I really love, mostly because I said it. It says, stress is a signal that something needs to change. Suffering, bless you, is when we don't make the change. Now, I kind of like this because it begins to differentiate stress from the problem to a valuable signal. Kind of like if we're driving down the road and a little red light comes on our dashboard. If we dealt with that little red light the way most people deal with stress, we'd go, ooh, there's a problem. Just going to break out that little light and keep on driving. Now everything's fine. See, the little red light isn't the problem. The little red light is part of the solution because it lets us know something needs our attention. Something needs to change. And do you notice how much attention we pay to those little red lights? We pay attention, pull over, go to the dealership, whatever we need to do. Also, I think one of the reasons we find ourselves caught in this kind of cycle is we've been given some bad information about what stress is. We've been told that stress is what something or someone does to us. Kids stress us out, work stress us out, people stress us out. But the good news is that's not true, and I love doing this with folks who have a certain degree of medical knowledge because you get this better than most audiences. Because really what we now know, what stress really is actually just a series of chemical changes in our body. These chemicals for the most part, are adrenaline, noradrenaline, and cortisol. Don't really need to know what they are, other than that's what stress really is, a series of chemical changes in our body. Matter of fact, if we look at the relationship between stress and productivity, and by the way, when I'm talking about you being productive, I'm not talking about you just being productive at work. I'm talking about you being your best anywhere in life. When there's zero stress in our life in terms of these chemical changes, there is zero productivity. It's called sleep. Not real productive while we're sleeping. Now, while we're sleeping, there's very little adrenaline, noradrenaline, and cortisol going throughout our body. Guess which three chemicals wake us up in the morning other than Starbucks? Right, yeah, I know that does. But adrenaline, noradrenaline, and cortisol are the three chemicals that wake us up in the morning. Therefore, what happens for a while as our stress goes up in the form of these chemicals, our productivity goes up. We're more productive 3 hours after we wake up than we are 3 minutes after we wake up. And that's just because of the adrenaline, noradrenaline, and cortisol going throughout our body. However, most of us have had the experience that as this stress and these chemicals continue to go up, our productivity starts to go down, and we kind of crash and burn down there somewhere. You know, that's where the term burnout comes from, by the way. So what I want to help you do is help you raise your level of awareness. Remember that quote from Albert Einstein? Raise your level of awareness of when you first feel pushed over the top. When you first start going from your most productive into that downward spiral. And then because we now know that stress is a series of chemical changes in our body, in the next 35 minutes or so, I'm going to show you how to change the chemical makeup of your body when you find yourself stressed. Ooh, that's different, isn't it? Hey, this isn't just don't worry, be happy, is it? This is good. Okay. That way you can bring yourself back into the zone of productivity. Now, you can bring yourself back into a high level, medium level, low level. That is totally up to you. I just want you to be in charge of it versus these people, these situations being able to make you feel that way. Sound good? Okay, want to know how to do it? All right. In order to pull this off, we've got to go just a little bit deeper than the natural law of cycles. We have to understand at least a little bit about how this works in our body and our brain. For instance, most people know we have 3 parts to the brain. The lower part of the brain is called the brainstem. This is where our fight or flight responses are located. This is the part of the brain that regulates our muscle tension, heart rate, breathing, blood pressure, etc. Middle part of the brain is called the limbic system. This is where our emotions are generated for the most part. And it's also the part of the brain that scans the environment for signs of threat or danger. The upper 80% of the brain is called the neocortex. This is where we have access to our interpersonal skills, problem-solving skills, clarity, confidence, creativity, etc. So here's how all this works. And again, I love it that you guys know something about this. Data comes in from our 5 senses, and it is first scanned by the limbic system. Limbic system sees a little thing on the table, no problem, sends the data on up to the neocortex because that's no threat. But if the limbic system senses anything it doesn't like, or anyone it doesn't like, or anything it has determined to be a threat to our physical or emotional peace of mind, it sends the data immediately down to the brainstem, bypassing the neocortex. Daniel Goleman, in his book Emotional Intelligence, calls this neural hijacking, because it's this part of the brain kind of hijacking the data, sending it down to the brainstem. Now, at this point, the brainstem can only do 2 things. Fight or flight, which means blood pressure goes up, muscle tension goes up, heart rate goes up, and we get ready to strike out or withdraw that fight or flight response we've heard so much about. Matter of fact, in the latest brain research, this is actually called downshifting because it happens so quickly. And again, for our purposes, it bypasses the most intelligent, capable, purposeful part of our brain. Now, this is exactly what should happen in a fight or flight situation. I mean, if you're walking down the road and somebody jumps out at you from the bushes, you don't want to have to stand there and go, somebody just jumped out at me from the bushes. Wonder what I should do. Wah! See, that's a perfect response in a fight or flight situation. So the good news is, whenever you're in a fight or flight situation, this is going to happen. You don't have to think about it. It is perfect. The problem, of course, is when we're dealing with kids and lack of money and time issues and all these people issues and all these interruptions, these are not true fight or flight situations. And remember, this blood pressure, muscle tension, heart rate is all driven by adrenaline, noradrenaline, and cortisol, which now manifests itself as stress, frustration, anger, overwhelmed, tired, sad, tense, worried. Now, the problem, obviously, isn't that this happens every once in a while. This becomes a way of life for us, which means we're kind of taking this into life, trying to deal with life from this kind of stressed, frustrated, anxious perspective. And we can't deal with deadlines, lack of money, difficult people, all those things from this lower part of the brain. So because we are now even less effective, we are more stressed and frustrated and angry and overwhelmed and sad. The limbic system goes, aha, more negative data, sends it right back down to the brainstem. And can you see how now this external cycle has been replicated by this internal cycle? This generally shows up in one of two ways. Either the I'm right. That's that anger, frustration, resentment. You know, we've got our bone that says, I'm right. You're not taking that from me. Or just beat me now. I give up. It's all over with. You know, I quit. That kind of stuff. I call this the world of the undermined because it's physically under the rest of our mind. And it's where people feel undermined by all of these stressors in life. And again, it's not that this happens every once in a while. This becomes a lifestyle for many of us. And we find ourselves trapped in the lower 20% of the brain trying to deal with issues that really require our clarity, confidence, and creativity, interpersonal skills, problem-solving skills, all of that neocortex nature to be successful. Matter of fact, you may have seen these articles in Newsweek and Discover where they did a pretty nice job of looking at how anxiety, fear, stress, frustration not only changes the chemical makeup of our body, but actually influences the way our brain processes information. So rather than leaving you trapped in this lower 20% of the brain, I'm not only going to show you how to change the chemical makeup of your body, I'm going to show you actually how to shift from this lower part of the brain up into the neocortex. So you can influence which part of the brain is engaged as you deal with these situations. This is what I call life from the top of the mind. And it's a system and a philosophy about bringing our best thinking and even our best emotions. So this is not just a mental experience. It's an emotional experience as well to the challenging people and the challenging situations in life and therefore bringing our best to them.